work at PPLD as the teen person who works at Cheyenne Mountain Library. Yay! So today I am bringing you drinks of the gods. So we are going to make 3 different drinks today that are all very delicious and wonderful. And where better to start than the actual drink of the gods, aka Ambrosia. Alright, so Ambrosia is of Greek mythology mostly. It does pop up a little bit in Egyptian mythology, but it is the food of the gods. So a lot of historians wonder exactly what this is. It is described at least once as a food that you can drink. So some people assume that means honey. It is used to anoint Achilles and make him immortal. Unfortunately, they missed his heel, so his heel is not immortal, so that would probably be a problem later on in life, like 100 years down the line, you're still like youthful and stuff, but your heel is like not. Another myth that we are going to be combining with our Ambrosia myth is the Norse apples of Idun. So the apples of immortality were these apples that the goddess Idun kept in a box, and whenever the gods started to feel old, they would be like, Idun, can I please have an apple? And she would be like, yeah, here. And then they would eat it and they would be restored with their youthful glow. We are going to make Ambrosia with the apples of Idun today. Alright, so we are going to be doing a recipe for simple syrup. And a simple syrup is super handy because it mixes well into cold drinks. It's basically like a sugary flavored syrup that you can use in a like soda or in your coffee drinks, your iced coffee drinks. So like when you go to a cafe and you're like, I want iced coffee but with lavender syrup, that syrup that they pump in there is a simple syrup. That syrup that you get in like a soda stream, that's a simple syrup. So it's a super versatile thing and you can mix it into all sorts of things. I think that this apple one would be like really good mixed in with some ginger ale or something. Who knows? But basically it's 1 part water, 1 part sugar, and 1 part the flavor of your choice. So I'm going to be doing apples. I've only got 4 apples here, so if I need a little bit more to make that 1 part, which I'm just going to do a cup of each, I'm going to supplement it with some rhubarb because it's the rhubarb season, and rhubarb is delicious. So to bring in some more ambrosia-y aspects, I'm also going to add a little bit of honey to it. Might not quite use this up. And I've also got my sugar, and I've already got my water in a saucepan. Alright, so the first step is to get peeling with some apples. But basically I've just got this peeler here, and I'm really carefully peeling this apple. So the good news is that after this we get to have some peeled apple snacks. But, you know, if you're like making a pie, or for some reason you need to peel an apple, you can make simple syrup with the apple peels. Another thing to note with simple syrups is that it sure doesn't have to be an apple simple syrup. The other day I made a simple syrup out of lilacs. But yeah, let's get a close-up shot of this real quick. For the last peel, I just like angle my peeler down here and just slide it up really carefully, trying to get a really thick strip. Okay, alright, so we've got our cup of water in our saucepan right here. I'm now going to get my cup of sugar and honey. Alright, there's like a 1/4 cup of sugar in there. So we're gonna get some more sugar real quick. There we go. Might as well turn on the burner. Hey. Okay, there it goes. This one's a little bit tricky sometimes. So now we're gonna get like some more sugar in here, like another 1/4 cup, so that it equals a 1/2 cup. And we're just gonna pour it in there. Now we're gonna get our honey. I'm not gonna put it in the measuring cup because that would be a sticky mess. I'm just gonna pour it directly in here and eyeball it. There we go. Okay, so that's probably a half a cup. And of course I can always try it later and add more sugar or honey if I need to. Actually I'm just gonna go ahead and add more sugar. I like things sweet. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so we've got that going. We're gonna wait for that to dissolve and then we are going to add in the fruit. We are gonna simmer for 5 minutes and then we are gonna let it cool for an hour, at least an hour, before we strain out the apple. And I did end up using about half a stalk of rhubarb. We've got about a cup of this stuff in here. So we're doing 1 to 1 to 1. 1 cup water, 1 cup sweetener, 1 cup of stuff. All right, so see ya later when that is simmered. I am just gonna add this in off camera because you just pour it. It's easy. You don't need to see it. And then we are gonna probably move on to our next drink. For our next drink, we are going to be making chai tea. All right, so chai tea is a delicious drink that you can get at anywhere, basically. So there's quite a bit of debate as to how chai tea came to be. One legend has it that like 5,000 years ago, a king ordered a spiced beverage that would just keep him healthy, I guess. And that had like ginger and pepper for digestion, clove as a pain reliever, cardamom, which is a mood enhancer, and cinnamon for circulation. Another possibility is a Buddhist monk on his way to China saw some locals chewing on some wild growing leaves and tried it and felt invigorated and then brought tea to the world. Another possibility is that there was another Indian king who just needed to stay alert while he was in court, so he basically like made up this drink that would help him stay awake. So we are going to make it! All right, so we're gonna make a concentrate, which you can then like mix up with some milk and stuff and have a great time drinking it. You can use like a nut milk or a milk, dairy milk, whatever you want. Goat milk could be cool. All right, so I've got 4 cups of water in this saucepan, and we are going to add in, we've got cinnamon sticks here. We're gonna put in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Okay, yay, did that. All right, we've got peppercorns. These are black peppercorns. There's a world of peppercorns. There's white peppercorns and pink peppercorns. And you want about a teaspoon of this. I'm eyeballing it. Probably gonna get a little bit more than a teaspoon because I like a really peppery tea. A little bit more than that. Okay, that's what they look like, just like little balls. All right, I've got some star anise, which is fun, fun looking. I actually really don't like the flavor, so the recipe calls for 2 of these. I'm gonna put in 1. They're star shaped, pretty nifty. But it smells like licorice. It also tastes like licorice. If you don't like licorice, you could probably pass on that. So this is allspice. Fun fact, allspice, which is commonly believed to be like a blend of spices, is its own spice. It looks a little bit like peppercorns, except they're just a little bit bigger. Yep. So we're gonna put in a pinch of those. The recipe calls for 3, which I'm like, that's just not very much. It's not very much. Okay, and we've got some cardamom. seeds here. You can also use cardamom pods, which are green, and they have the seeds in them. So we're gonna do that. Oh, I missed a step. Basically, we were sort of supposed to crush all of these in a mortar and pestle. I'm gonna do that now. Another way to do this, if you don't have a mortar and pestle, you can just like use a rolling pin to roll over them in like a plastic bag or something. And they don't need to be like pulverized. We just want to like crush them a teensy little bit to like let the flavors really like release themselves onto the world. Okay, so we've got our crushed cardamom pods in there. I am actually probably going to add a little bit more of all of these spices just because I like it really flavorful. But the last ingredient on my list is fresh ginger. So the recipe calls for 4 inches of fresh ginger, but since this guy's really fat, I'm doing about 2 inches. And no need to peel it. I'm just going to roughly chop it into little slices. This is ginger I found in my fridge. It's pretty old, but since I'm not like eating it, I figure that's okay. I added a little bit more of all of those ingredients. You can see them. There they are. Alright, so now we are going to simmer these for like 15 minutes. More than 15 minutes. I'm going to let them go for probably 20. This is another place where the recipes will vary based off of taste. Alright, so we are going to simmer that for 20 minutes, and then we are going to take it off the heat and add in our black tea. So we want to use a black tea that is kind of, doesn't have its own big flavor profile, so like an Earl Grey would not work because that tastes like bergamot and deliciousness. So I've just got this Twinings English Breakfast black tea. I'm using decaf because I like to drink this at night and I don't like to stay up all night. But you can totally use a caffeinated tea and drink it in the mornings instead of coffee or tea or whatever you do. And yeah, so we're now waiting on things to boil. We've got our ambrosia over here. I added in the fruit now, and so I'm waiting for that to simmer for also 15 minutes. So these guys I'm going to come back to in a bit. The last drink we are making today is kombucha. Alright, so I make this pretty regularly now. It's very easy to do, although I do recommend maybe doing this as a family or with some adult assistance, just because there's a lot of moving parts to this. Alright, so kombucha is a tea that is fermented. So I've got a batch going right here. You can see there's this kombucha fluid here, and then there's this like disc floating on top. So that disc is called a SCOBY, S-C-O-B-Y, and that stands for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria. All right, and so basically the kombucha, the SCOBY, you put into some room temperature tea that's sweetened, and it ferments a little bit, makes active yeast strands, and turns it into kombucha. So it's a lightly effervescent, aka fizzy, drink that is going to have a little bit of caffeine and a little bit of sugar in it, and it's going to taste delicious. So kombucha is thought to be invented in China around 220 BC. After that, it spread basically worldwide. Basically, like in the 60s, it took off as a health craze in America, and now it's in every grocery store. It is also kind of expensive to buy it bottled, so it is pretty easy to make at home. You are dealing with active cultures, so definitely use a little bit of caution with it, and I recommend getting used to it and feeling really confident with it before you start experimenting. So what you need is a green or black tea. It has to be caffeinated. You're going to need sugar, plain white sugar. Do not use honey. Honey won't work. And you're going to need water, of course, and you're going to need a SCOBY. So the SCOBY itself, you can buy online. We bought ours for $16. And the cool thing about kombucha is every time you make a brew with it, the SCOBY makes another SCOBY. So after one batch, you're going to have 2 SCOBYs. After 3, you're going to have, or when you do another batch of that, then you're going to have 4 SCOBYs. Yep, and then you're going to have 8. So it multiplies exponentially. And so it's a really economical process, and you can give your SCOBYs away to friends if you want. So it's really fun, and we're going to do it. So the first step, we are going to move back over to the stove. We are going to boil 4 cups of water and some sugar. All right, so let's get to it. I've got my pot here. I've got 4 cups of water. 4 cups of water is going in here. Ta-da! All right, now we need a 1/4 cup of sugar. Doo-doo-doo. There we go. There we go, 1/4 cup of sugar into the pot. Now we are going to boil it and dissolve the sugar, just like we did with the ambrosia, and we are also going to dissolve some sugar into the chai as well. Actually, we can just do that now. The chai doesn't need a lot of sugar. I'm doing less than a 1/4 cup because you can sweeten it when you make it later. So since it's a concentrate, you're going to be able to mix it with some like hot milk or whatever, and you can sweeten it then if you want to. Okay, so we're waiting for that to dissolve, and then we are going to add in some tea bags and steep it for 5 to 10 minutes. I recommend going on the longer side. That's just my preference, but whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, so I pre-prepared this batch of tea, kombucha tea. So again, this is 4 cups of water. I did 4 tea bags and a 1/4 cup of sugar, and it is now cooled at room temperature. And we are going to harvest this batch of kombucha. This has been brewing for 14 days, which is a little bit longer than I like to go. First, we're going to taste test it, just so we know what it tastes like. For this, we use a straw, and we use our suction science and cap the top once we've immersed it, which will allow the liquid to stay trapped, so we can just try it. You don't want to like stick your hand in there really, and you want clean hands whenever you handle your SCOBY. You want clean hands whenever you cook. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty good. It's a little bit more vinegary than I like it. The longer you brew, the more vinegary it gets, but it's still really good and pretty sweet. So I've got this glass Tupperware here. We're going to need to separate the 2 SCOBYs from each other. So we're just going to really gently pour it out. Okay, bud. Come on out. Come out, come out. Yeah. Okay. Very little spillage. So that's awesome. Alright, so here's me holding the SCOBY. Okay. So actually they separated really easily. It doesn't always happen like that. But, okay, so we're going to get a close-up on this. Here it is. Here's the SCOBY. It's dripping onto the table. So this is just like a really happy symbiotic culture of bacteria. And we're just going to plop that right in there. Easy as pie. Okay, so we've got our other SCOBY. He's chilling out in the Tupperware. And we're going to let him hang out there for now. And the last step for this, is just to put something on top. It could even be a paper towel. I recommend cloth or cheesecloth. And now we're gonna put them in a dark spot. And that's it. That's how you make kombucha. It's pretty easy. So with this, we're gonna just put it in a jar, drink it. It's gonna be delicious. I love kombucha. I love to make kombucha. So that is pretty much it for Drinks of the Gods. We added sugar into the chai. The ambrosia is almost ready to pour out into a jar and start using. And with the chai, we're gonna mix that up with some milk later. All right, so peace out. Okie doke, final step of making anything is to try your product. So here I've got a little bit of my chai concentrate. I have mixed 2 spoonfuls of sugar into it while it's hot, and then I added ice so it would not be hot because it is also a hot day. Here's the kombucha that we harvested from that SCOBY that was sitting in that little glass container. And I've got our ambrosia, which is a beautiful pink color, and I basically love it. All right, so starting with the chai, I'm gonna add a little milk to it. And I thought I would pour on camera because that always looks cool. All right, ready? Ooh, pretty. Wow. I'm into that. That's really good. So one final thing you could do if you really felt like it is maybe add like a cap full of vanilla extract. That could really bring out a depth of flavor. But this is spectacular. I love this. I call that a win. All right, so I've got my kombucha. I'm gonna add a little bit of just a plain club soda to it, seltzer or whatever. I don't know the difference between seltzer and club soda and sparkling water. But there we've got that going on. And now we're gonna add our ambrosia to it. Incredibly healthful drink. That's what that is. Okay, here goes. Okay, so we'll also shake that. Okay. That's really good. I'm definitely going to use that apple syrup a lot. And that kombucha is definitely going to get drunk up. Anyway, cheers!